Preppers are gonna die. Changed my mind. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Make sure you hit that like, share, and subscribe. Today, we're gonna go off a little topic that I posted a poll like a couple days ago. I think it was like Sunday or Saturday night. I posted a poll and it was, do you think this channel is a bushcraft channel or a prepping channel? And you would be like shocked how many people commented that they thought this channel was a prepping channel, ironically. So we're going to talk about that. Trigger warning, if you are easily angered, and I'm sure this is going to bring out the keyboard warriors, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I have taken a full circle of prepping, and we're going to talk about my prepping journey here for a minute. We're just going to dissect it, and at the end of the video, we're going to talk about why I think if somebody is a true, by all means, true definition of a prepper in their doomsday scenario, or I think maybe most doomsday scenarios, they're probably going to die. So I'm not going to rant too long. I want to keep this video as short as possible. So when I got into prepping, or started prepping, I would say, I want to say that it was probably around 2009, I would say, around 2009. And there's a lot that happened in that year, and just kind of, it triggered something in my mind. And I first started off with not hoarding, but getting canned food and just getting extra canned food and keeping it, on hand and keeping it at the ready. I think YouTube had a lot to do with it at the time. I stumbled across Sensible Prepper video back way in the days, and I got to it because of a reference of an old OG Nuttin' Fancy video, right? So anyways, that just kind of sent me down a rabbit hole, and then I moved to Montana the first time. I moved to Montana and I was single, living by myself, and I was living in a camper in the middle of godforsaken nowhere, working. And at the time I was working as a firefighter and stuff like that. And back then, it just used to be colder back then. I know a lot of people, and I don't want to get into like some kind of like, global warming and all this crap, but back then it used to get a lot colder. It was not uncommon to see negative 50 degrees. And, I knew it was going to get cold like that. So I started preparing for, I would say probably preparing for blizzards, really. And one thing led to another, yada, 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 skipping forward, got married, craziness of life. Here we are now. I have like a year's worth of food. So moving forward onto that was kind of my circle journey that got me into preparedness between professionally and just seeing how things were going and all that jazz. Okay, so moving forward as to why, and we're going to touch on it. I'm not teasing you guys along for the views. Moving forward, I reached a level of preparedness that I wouldn't say would be super doomsday ready for the complete end of the world, but to a point where I could sit back and be like, being an outdoorsman, being into backpacking and all kinds of stuff like that, bushcraft, that's a separate thing besides the prepping, right? And so going into it, I really realized that I'd reached a point to where I wasn't concerned about anything as far as emergency preparedness. Then the pandemic happened, and we all know the craziness that happened with that. And I reached a point that there wasn't really much left I could top off except just hoard more and more and more food and just, moving and working in different parts of the country, 6 months here, 6 months there. I had to bring a lot of stuff with me, and it got complicated. I have a friend of mine, and he's a prepper. He asked me a question. We're talking about emergency preparedness and bug out gear and stuff like that. And he asked me, he said, honestly, if you could take A and Z and all this stuff, and after talking to him, this was before I decided to make this video, I realized that a lot of people that are preppers, and I'm not talking about him, but a lot of people that are preppers, that they will end up dying in a true apocalyptic scenario. Or not apocalyptic, but you know what I mean, like a bad SHTF scenario. And we're not talking about Canadian Prepper and his fear mongering. I used to love his channel, but honestly, I've just kind of tuned it out because everything's the sky is falling, Chicken Little, and you reach a point, it's just like, if there's a saying I used to have for work. It's if everything's an emergency, nothing is an emergency. And that's really where I think Canadian Prepper has begotten himself into everything's an emergency, so nothing's an emergency. But anyway, so I don't want to get sidestepped on attacking him. I have nothing against the dude. I think he'd actually be a cool dude to hang out with. I don't have anything against him. I just think his Chicken Little videos are just not for me. And then there's this other guy that me and my buddy, we call him the pink salamander. If he's watching this video, he'll know who I'm talking about and get it. But I'm not gonna name what channel it is because I don't want to start an internal YouTube fight right as I'm getting off the ground. Anyways, so talking to him, I was like, honestly, I have a family. I have a lot of gear. I wouldn't say the best gear that money can buy, but I have a lot of really good gear. I would say backpacks. This is not a side story. Backpacks, I think probably at this point, I've had every backpack, and I have the best backpacks money can buy. It is what it is at this point, right? And so, talking to him, I just realized that there comes a point, and a lot of these people, and I've gone into some seminars and talked to some other people and just some other stuff, and you can only hoard so much stuff. Primarily, we're going to talk about bugging out. If you have just become a prepper and you haven't practiced woodsman skills or survival skills or disaster survival skills, which I think those are two very separate things. Urban disaster survival, I think, is in a category all of its own. I wouldn't call myself an expert on it, but I've been in enough disaster situations and then working in emergency services that I probably have a lot more input than the average bear, but I would not consider myself an expert by any means. But there's that. And honestly, if you don't have the ability to take nothing and survive off of it, I think in a true fantasy scenario that a lot of people play in their mind, you're probably going to die. I think that's not even if you have a medical emergency. If you're not able to go out in the wilderness and go out in a bad situation and survive and make something out of nothing, I don't think if you took all of your possessions that you bought and hoarded and you had to leave them, you wouldn't have it. Me and my buddy, we're talking about this, and he's like me. He has a bug out plan for his family. He has really good gear to hit the road, and we're talking at some point if you had to ditch your vehicle, how long could you last? How good are you? And you could be the best guy in the world, and something could happen, and you're dead. But we were talking about basically if you had to ditch your vehicle and how long, and he was talking about, well, what kind of tools would I bring? And he has a really good bug out bag system. But, and what I kind of told him was the way I look at it now is totally different. 10, 15 years ago, as far as prepping, I thought I could be the camel going through the eye of a needle with all my supplies and stuff. And even though I have a family, there's just no practical way to bug out with enough supplies to last. I mean, honestly, I can take a 65-liter backpack and pack that out and last a week without being insanely heavy. I could last a week if it was just me, my wife and kids. Packs are going to be totally different, but I'm just talking about one individual. I could last a week off of just one backpack that's like 65 liters comfortably. And that's, singing Kumbaya by a campfire. But for a longer term scenario, I'm going to need a rifle. I'm going to need, more tools. Honestly, I would need to bring, he asked me, it was like, if there's only two tools that you could bring besides, what would you bring? And I was like, honestly, I probably wouldn't bring an axe. I'd bring a silky big boy and then a decent sized knife. It wouldn't be a bushcraft knife. And so, realistically, I think what you need to do, and a lot of people have touched about this, but I've had a lot of people comment on stuff. I had an older bug out bag video, and everybody's like, just watch the crap. I think it's like up to almost 40,000 views at this point. But the majority of the preppers out there that you see, they would be dead, I think, probably about 2 weeks if they had to just ditch everything like what me and my buddy were talking about with vehicles, and you're just strictly living out of a bag. The average person, I think, would be dead in 2 weeks. I think the average person really overestimates their capabilities to survive out in the woods, out in the mountains, out in the swamps, wherever. If you're living off the land and you had to leave all your supplies and you put all your faith in your supplies and material possessions instead of your mind and your skills and teaching yourself and educating yourself, I think the average prepper would be dead in 2 weeks. I really do. I see a lot of people either succumbing to the elements, between the heat or the cold. I think, for me, I'd rather deal with the cold than the heat. Most people, they would die quicker in the cold. Me, if I had to choose one or the other, I'm taking give me the dead of winter, man. Give me the dead of winter. There's plenty of water everywhere. I can stay warm. That's not a big deal. I can make a shelter. That's not a big deal. But I think for the average bear, the average prepper, if all you're doing is your name is Bob and you work in a cubicle and you watch a few videos and stuff and you make good money, you work in a cubicle, you grew up in a subdivision, you don't really do anything out in the woods and do anything recreational to build your skills up slowly over years. You don't pay to get trained or do any kind of classes, and you're just this guy and you're going to go buy a bunch of stuff and you hoard up all this food. At some point, if in this fictitious scenario you had to abandon your house, that average person, average middle age, middle weight, average weight, whatever, I really do think that individual would be dead in probably 2 weeks. I know that sounds, I'm not trying to sound arrogant. I just really, I've seen enough people. I've seen enough psychology on people. And who knows, I might be dead. But, you know, I just feel like a lot of people overestimate how long they could survive. And I think if you're self-identifying as a prepper, and that's all you have in your tool bag, I think you'd be dead in 2 weeks. You know, hate, I'm going to get all kinds of hate on this comment. I just want to make a video on it. I was just thinking about it. Test out my new camera. I got a new iPhone 16 Pro Max. Hopefully the camera quality is a little bit better. I have some DJI lapel mics coming in. So hopefully I can get some better audio for you guys. Trying to invest, make it more enjoyable for you guys. So just a quick video on my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section what you think. And hey, if you disagree, let me know in the comment section if you disagree. Just my opinion. I'm not saying mine's better than anybody else's. I'm just a guy in the garage blabbering onto a phone talking to himself. So, all right, make sure you guys hit that like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Stay safe.